Welcome to Village June, where you'll be getting weekly doses of career tips and hacks, as well as hearing stories of grit, perseverance, and inspiration. My overall mission of this new series is really building community, sharing stories of hope, and bringing everyone closer together by creating a very inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome. Hello, everyone. Hello, LinkedIn. Happy Veterans Day. I am excited to host this special edition of my LinkedIn Live series and welcoming my special honorary guest, who I've met all through the power of social media. Her name is Graciela Sato, and she is an award-winning author and Air Force veteran, mother, powerhouse marketer. So let's bring her in. And here she is. Hello, Graciela.
Good Veterans Day afternoon to you.
How are you? Happy
Good.
Veterans Day.
Thank you. It is a beautiful day, just surrounded by people from the community. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to chat together.
Of course, I'm really excited to have this with you and really share your story. Congratulations, by the way, you just launched your brand new book, Brand Before Your Resume.
Thank you.
Last week, I believe. Was it last week?
Friday night. Yeah, we had a big networking and book launch open house party, and it was very much networking. I think we stayed like 45 minutes beyond the scheduled end time because we had dozens of military spouses and veterans and people still on active duty. We had one gentleman joining in from Misawa, Japan. And together with dozens and dozens from our community, it was a launch with the whole community. And yeah, it happened on Friday night.
Nice. Well, congratulations. Well, I know you. We've known each other for a year. Before we actually tell everyone how we met, why don't you give a little brief introduction to who you are and what you specialize in, what your overall mission is?
Yeah, so I love to introduce myself as the daughter of Mexican immigrants that somehow ended up at UC Berkeley on an Air Force ROTC scholarship. Because saying it that way just opens up a lot of conversations about a lot of things. But that's how it happened for me. And the way that it happened is a high school counselor just happened to be married to an Air Force major. And it was in showing up and asking, how can I go to college? Because, firstborn of 5 kids to immigrants, not the thing that everybody was telling me I could do. So I looked for people who told me how to. And so it really started there. So Major Burgess mentored me. I got awarded the 4-year ROTC scholarship, went to Berkeley. And then I went straight to undergraduate navigator training. So I got to go fly for a decade with the Air Force. And then that really shaped my worldview and literally my view of the world, my worldview, and my ability to really believe that I could keep learning anything. Like once you learn all those systems and planes, and you just realize, wow, I could literally just keep learning anything I want to learn. And after a decade of flying, I also finished my master's degree in international business management and global marketing while I was active duty, because I was thinking I wasn't going to stay. I kind of saw the career path ahead and I wanted to do different things. And I was intrigued by telecom software and communication systems. And so I finished my master's. And then as soon as I presented my thesis, I put my papers in to separate after a decade. And then I did a career in Silicon Valley. Yeah. Well, it was very decisive, moves here and with my husband together. And then I ended up taking a position and, we could talk about the transition and who guided me, through that. Yes. Because it was women veterans that really made the difference. And then I did a career in Silicon Valley for a decade. And then I'll answer more questions about what I'm doing now. But that was really the beginning and how I transitioned into corporate marketing and then got all that experience.
Yeah. And I know that, like I mentioned, we've known each other for a year, and I was always inspired by you and your story and the work that you do to help veterans, military spouses transition their work, their experience in like the military world into civilian life. Because I'm married to a veteran. We've often talked about his experience when he transitioned out and he had this feeling of being lost. He didn't know what to do. But me and Graciela actually met through social media on Instagram, through a nonprofit called No Excuse Mom, where I actually hosted free workouts.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but let's talk about like that experience when you were transitioning out of the military.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, how was that like for you? Like, I really want to know like the backstory, like what inspired you to start hosting these workshops, and then eventually inspire you to write this book.
Well, the key to all of this, because I know I love to give takeaways, like what can I actually do with the story that I'm telling you? Like, what do I take away? The key thing for everybody in any career transition, but especially one that it devastates your identity. I mean, literally, like leaving the military. I'm going to quote one of the guys that was at the book launch on Friday, Chris Norris. He was like, "Who am I without all these medals?" Because he's getting out in a year. And he's already thinking, "Who am I going to be without all this?" Right? And so it's a devastating identity shock when you hang up your uniform and you leave that career behind. And now you're literally, I was actually really excited, like to dictate my own life, but it's also very shocking because it shakes you to the core. So the key thing, the number one thing is, do not do what too many people do, which is that wait till the last second. And then a month before you're getting out, jump on LinkedIn and put up a profile that does nothing, right? Or like literally like, making your network and building a network of people that can open doors for you and you can do informational interviews and learn how to do them a year, two in advance is what we should all do. And now we have all these tools to be able to connect, right? But the number one thing is, understand that you will be successful when you surround yourself with people who want you to be successful. Because literally that's what happened in my case. 6 months before I got out, like the day I put the papers in, one of the captains who was in my squadron, who was getting out ahead of me, Justine Cromer, she said, "Okay, now that you've decided, then you have to come with me to the Hubble group." And they introduced you to all these women in Spokane. A Vietnam era veteran created the group, and she meets monthly with all these women who are professionals here in our city in Spokane, where we're stationed. And she will hug you and will hold you and will help you through what's ahead. And she was 6 months ahead of me in getting out. And so she had just gotten into this group. And so that's my first tip is do not try to do this alone. Go in with a group
Mhm.
and then start learning everything that you don't know, because these women are why I was able to do that crazy career transition from the airplane into global marketing for a technology company headquartered in Munich, Germany, but in Silicon Valley. That never would have happened without this group.
And when I shout out to Adriana, she just said, yes, it brings up all of the identity issues. I was so
Yeah,
lost when I got out of USAF. It was very difficult for me. And I think
yeah.
you mentioned in the book, there's nothing like no one really teaches you how to do a resume or LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, well, some people, they tell you to do one or to do a master resume, but why are we telling people to create marketing deliverables first?
Hmm.
That's what we're saying. He's like, "Hey, go make me a website." Well, what are we doing? What's the product about? I don't know. Just make a website. That's the same kind of vibe with just make a resume, because you haven't done the introspective work yet to understand, what are my interests, and that's why I was so blessed to have these women, because the base program, the TAP program, was telling me make a resume, make a resume. And they're like, "Don't make a resume." They're like, "Do a self-assessment, understand the differences between accounting, finance, ops, logistics, marketing, like what is all that in the corporate world, right? Do
Right.
you even know?" I'm like, "I don't know." And so they're like, "Go find out what you love to do so then you can find that fit of the things you love to do in the next setting. So stop." I mean, they literally said, "You have so much energy and talent and you can do anything, but you have no idea what's available out here. Stop." I mean, literally, they just like harnessed me. And that's the key. You do the introspective work first. You start meeting people. You start finding out. I thought I was going to go to ops because I was in Air Force and ops and flying and ops, operations. And then I learned what that was in corporate. And then everyone I met with for informational interviews, they're like, "You're not ops."
I
Like,
don't see you ops.
you can
You're
be
like
ops.
you're like too strategic to
Yeah.
just do like operations.
Yeah. Well, you could be ops. It's the thing you can do, but you're obviously not really ops. That's not your thing. You are so clearly marketing and communications and executive briefings, and you should go check that out. I'm like, okay. But again, I did not know, right? I did not know. And so to tell somebody in that state, but it's, who am I to go do a resume for what? It's going to be way off base, untargeted, and fail. And then you start feeling really, really bad about yourself, thinking there's something wrong with you because none of your resumes are resulting in what's the job of resume? To get an
Hmm.
interview, right? You're
Yeah.
not getting calls, right? Well, it's because you haven't intrigued anybody.
Right.
And that's why I call it brand before your resume.
Yeah.
You,
Let's actually, before we welcome some of your students,
yes.
I want to actually ask you because you broke it down in very simply.
Mhm.
This acronym here, brand before your resume.
Yes.
So why don't you kind of go over what these words or letters mean from a personal branding perspective? And I'm on actually chapter module 1,
Mhm.
and everything that you're writing about, like the importance of knowing who you are, knowing your core values,
Yeah.
you really want to, and you're like the way you're applying your marketing background
Yeah.
to teaching veterans on how to market themselves. Because at the end of the day, if you're a job seeker, you have to think like a marketer. How are you going to market yourself to attract those different companies,
Thank
right?
you. Yeah, the job search process is one big marketing exercise. And those of us who understand that approach it like a marketing problem to solve, right? And how do we start marketing? Do we start marketing by talking about our stuff? No, we start marketing by thinking, okay, this is going to be a marketing campaign to, for example, we're going to launch a brand new line of ceramic coffee mugs into the college market. Or maybe we're going to launch it into the grandmother market. You choose your audience. Who are you going to market to? And then you work your way back to what can we say about this thing that we're launching, right? Same questions apply. And then how do we choose what we're going to intrigue them with so that they look at our coffee mug? Or in your case, they look at you as a candidate. There's a very specific methodical process that marketing and branding professionals use to arrive at that campaign, messages, language, words, images, all of it. And yeah, I'm taking all of that and applying it to us because we are the valuable product when we go out into the world. We have the talent that people need, but we can't just generically talk about ourselves and hope someone finds us.
Yeah.
We have to market, and that starts with that audience as much as it starts with yourself. So, acronym. It's right here on the back cover. I wanted it very prominent. See the way I made it into an acronym because, military people, we just love our acronyms, but it really means all of this. Okay, before your resume, you should brand. So before your resume, you should become relevant, authentic, noticeable, and differentiated. Let me repeat that. Become relevant, as in to your new audiences going forward. Authentic, we're not making stuff up here. We're really talking about your value, yourself. The stories come from you. Be noticeable, which means please don't hide. You have to be known to other people. And then differentiated. What are you going to say to really stand out as you amongst everybody else? So, brand before your resume.
Yes, I love that. And you know what? I feel like everyone that is on the job market, not only veterans, should read this book. Because I always often tell my clients that you need to know who you are, show up authentically,
Mhm.
and put yourself out there, especially right now during this pandemic. It's you're
Yeah,
competing with so many people for that job because unfortunately
right.
this is because of COVID, and unfortunately this is like one of the highest historical rates of unemployment. So what are you
Yep.
going to do to stand out? So
Right. Well, and again, a lot of people in the military, when they were getting out, somebody might have said you have to know how to sell yourself or you have to know how to market yourself, but nobody showed up to tell you how to and teach you the how. And I am showing up to teach the how. And June, yeah, I mean, I've taught this content to Latinx veterans, first generation entrepreneurs, corporate professionals, librarians, and Girl Scouts. So anybody that needs to know how do you express value to attract recruiters, funding, customers, whatever you're trying to attract, admissions officers, if you're trying to apply to grad school. How do you do that process? And I've taught it to all these different communities. So thank you for mentioning that because it does
yeah,
apply everywhere. I just chose to do it for the military community for all the reasons we're talking about today.
yeah. I also do want to mention like one that really stuck out to me, like in module 1, you talked about the importance of like taking out the fluff, taking out as job seekers, as veterans, as anyone that is marketing themselves on their resumes, sometimes we think a resume is an opportunity for you to tell the employer everything that you're doing.
Exactly.
But that's why, like you said, it's important to work internally and figure out what you want to do career wise, and then you put what's relevant
Exactly.
on your resume.
I remember that feeling, when I was doing that master resume and when I didn't know, before we got the guidance, before I got the guidance from my group, I remember really thinking about every single thing that I had done, every special project, everything, and try to cram it in there. But I didn't have the sense of why I was doing that. And that's where we fail so horribly with our military community when they're leaving, is insisting on the resume or insisting on the LinkedIn profile before they really know who they are, what they want, what they value, and who they need to attract. And it's really much more simple to do it the way that I'm teaching it. It saves you so much agony and time and wasted energy, because you're going in, it's very surgical strike kind of thing versus, like, my friend Sarah Maples calls it carpet bombing on your job search.
Right.
Bring it all out there. Like, no, that's exhausting. So yeah.
Mark, who actually is one of my on LinkedIn, he just bought your book right now as you were speaking. He says, I'm not a veteran, but I just bought it. And he said, you have 1 star, 5 star. By the way, congratulations. You are the #1 spot on Amazon for military families. What a huge recognition and accomplishment. But yes, Mark, please give her a review after you read the book. But
Thank you.
I am excited to welcome your students,
Yay!
veterans, our fellow veterans, into my live chat. And this is the first time, and bear with me, guys. I usually only have 1 or 2 guests. It's my first time that I'm having 3 of you.
This
So
is the part I'm so excited about. Oh my goodness, to meet them directly and hear from them.
yes. So let's bring him in. Raul Zarate and Marissa Rock. Welcome.
Everyone.
Happy Veterans Day.
Thanks for having us, June. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you for being here. So let's kick off this. Why don't you do introductions here? Let's start off with Marissa. And then after Marissa, Raul, you could do an intro to yourself as well.
Okay.
So yes, I'm Marissa Rock. I'm an Air Force veteran. I served 4 years on active duty. My AFSC or MOS was a 1-in-1 alpha. So I was an geospatial intelligence imagery analyst. Say that 5 times fast. But I ended up specializing in battle damage assessment. I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia for most of my time, and did all the training and everything in Texas, as most Air Force veterans do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just did my 4 and got out.
Well, thank you for your service. And Raul, what about you? Who are you?
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years. I did basically maintenance on aircrafts. My role was 6073, and I kind of have like a weird cap of like everything. I was quality assurance, and I was also like some part of the 1 year I was also a flight line operator, and then but my main goal was to just work on maintenance on aircrafts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you both this because I mean, my husband's a veteran, and I know he had some challenges when he transitioned out because he lost his identity. And it took him maybe like a few months or even a year to really find out what was next for him. So let's start off with Raul. How was it for you when you transitioned out?
Oh God.
And like be blunt, be like transparent. How was it?
It was definitely strange getting into the field like getting jobs. But there was the whole time, like while I'm doing school, there was counselors are like, come on, you can do it. Advisors are like, come on, you can do it. And so I chose math, and here I am now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was really strange. It was when I got out the military, I didn't know where to go. Up to like last year when I met Graciela, and we actually set it up to where it's like my resume is nicer. I'm able to speak about myself a little bit like meaningful, where it should be, and more of those kind of things. It really did help for me.
Can he read his branding that he came up with at the workshop? It's so good. I had to include it in the book. Do you
want to
have
read it? Or can I read it, Raul?
Yeah, sure.
I put you on the spotlight or the hot seat. Was page 160?
130.
130. 130. So on page 130 before chapter 6, where it says testing your brand,
Mhm.
Raul says, I'm Raul Zarate, lifelong technology tinkerer.
Tinker.
Tinker, I love that. The go-to person for family members, fellow students, and faculty members when they get stuck understanding their technology. As a young Marine, I was entrusted to repair electronics, to prepare and maintain aircraft and other flight line operations. Today, my curiosity as a self-motivated computer engineer has me programming in 3 different computer languages and building computers for myself and others. My years as a role model, motivating young people and family members to pursue STEM education and careers, plus my open minded innovator mindset, make me an outstanding candidate for the Intel internship.
Yeah. And there's
I love that.
See, no one else is going to say that. This is
Oh my
his.
God, this is like a great elevator pitch. Like, if I was hiring an intern for a software engineer, you're hired. It's very specific, not a lot of fluff.
Yeah, it took a lot. I remember me and Graciela were just doing it, and I have like notes on my. I have it here, and I remember like the tinker part. It took us a little bit try to figure it out, but we were playing like when you do the workshop. This one with Graciela, it's like you're just not saying things. You're thinking about words and elevating the words that you need to, and it took like 3 days to come up with that, maybe longer.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's worth it though. I mean, like this is like, and then now you have an internship at Intel.
Yeah, I have. Well, I have a full time job with Intel, but I have an internship with Microsoft software engineering. Here in the near future, I turned it down this time, because I had so much going on, personal and workflow. But now I'm gonna. I talked to the person that was recruiting me, and I cut it halfway through the like I was about to get interviewed like the day after, and I just said, look, I can't do it. Maybe we can do it next summer. And she's like, okay, that's fine.
What he's not telling you is that he's enrolled in 2 different university programs at the
Yeah.
same
Oh my goodness.
like math at Portland State. Tell me if I'm remembering this correctly. Math at Portland State and then computer science at Arizona State. So he's
Yeah.
in 2 schools and 2 programs and just super ambitious guy. And so, yeah, and a full-time job. And then you're like, oh, let me also do work for Microsoft. And then he finally like, he pulled back a little bit, which is really smart of you, by the way.
Yeah.
That's amazing that like, because you have now like a strong brand, you know what you want, you know what you stand for, you know your values, you have options. You don't
Yeah.
settle. I mean, Graciela says it in her book too. You had multiple offers, you had multiple opportunities,
Mhm.
and that's amazing. That congratulations for everything that you're doing,
Yeah. And
Raul.
so much I remember like I had so much to say about what I had. I couldn't like filter it, and I didn't know how to like say it. And so like yeah, it just worked out really well. I really appreciate what Graciela did for me.
Well,
Great work.
thank you. And Raul, I've said this to you many times. It's like, the people who show up in the workshop who were really there and I love you say, take it seriously, right? It's like, that's it. You got to take it seriously. Like we're going to do some hard stuff and going to ask some hard questions. And I just take people through a series of questions in the workshop, whether it's live or on Zoom, 1-to-1. And then, you have like a minute to come up with answers. And so it's going to be stuff that's authentic from your heart, top of mind, things that are really important to you. And then we go on to the next question. This is just how we start. And then in the consultation that follows, I get to say, wow, I want to know more about that. Can you tell me more about that? And then it goes deeper and then he reveals more information. And then after all that brainstorming, we stop and then I ask the key question. Okay, and your target audience for this new branding you're developing is? Because now everything you just brainstormed, which is the process that marketing professionals do, you came up with all this stuff, but you can't say all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so who you're talking to is paramount. And so then when he says, well, my interests are this, this, and this, like, okay, well, let's go back through the list. And what do we believe of all these attributes of you are going to be most impactful and important to your audience? And then you choose those words based on that. So that's marketing all the way through.
Right.
But it's unique to what he came up with. He came up with the answers and then we just craft it. And that's why what I'm doing is so different. It's not like, here's a marketing book, go brand yourself. No, I understand that for 8 years I've been teaching people, and I call it co-creating. We co-create brands. Like, I extract these things out of you with the exercise. You come up with your answers, but then I'm there to help you talk it out and rearrange it and talk about that audience. And then, well, maybe I don't really want that. Maybe I want to start the business. Okay, well, look at your list again, and now let's make different choices for that audience. And then, most importantly, and you heard me all say this in the workshop, I'm teaching you a repeatable process, because there will be more career transitions.
Yep.
And so what I want everybody to learn is that introspection, the process, the questions, everything. And then again, you don't make decisions about what you're communicating to the world until you're thinking about your audience. And you're thinking like a marketer. So that marketing mindset is the thing that's most important to me that everybody learns. Because June, you said it earlier, hey, here's a pandemic for you to deal with. Okay, well, we didn't see that coming. But there's always going to be more transitions. And if you have this in your toolkit, your confidence level is going to be so much higher being able to accept the change ahead than if you never got this.
Yeah, I love that. It's like building that foundation first and doing this exercise. And then say if you want to pivot industries and do another transition into a different role, you already know how to do it. You already know how to market yourself. It's just basically just taking a little bit of some tweaks in your personal statement and then going from there.
Well, that, Marissa did that, right? I did airplane to global marketing. So go ahead.
Yes, Marissa, because you did a transition too. I'm going to read your quote here. And in the back of the book, she says, "Your training helps me to see the ways in which my military experience can be related to my completely different future career. I definitely recommend this experience to student veterans. Developing a personal brand is beneficial to anyone at any stage." So let's talk about that, because you did a huge pivot too, right? When you transitioned out. And how was your experience when you left the military?
Yeah, my transition was really difficult. And I think that all veterans can relate to that, no matter what your transition looks like. And I want to say that the transition really starts with the transition assistance program, the TAP program that's in when you're still in the military, planning to transfer out. That's kind of where your transition starts. But that system, personally, to me, is just so flawed, because it's very much geared towards retirees who are going into the workforce. There's workforce recommendations and things like that. And I'm sitting there going, I need to write my personal statement for school. Like I'm applying to school. I'm not getting a job after this. I'm a separatee, not a retiree, going to school, not the workforce. So it was so not fit for me. I was so lost. And this is the structure that we all need. And the guide that we need for transitioning, because it was really difficult. I had this gap of time. I got out March of 2015, and school didn't start until that August. So I had about 6 months to where I was lost. All of a sudden, I was a waitress with a top secret security clearance. So I was just so lost. And that seems to be the trend. This feeling of purpose is just automatically taken from you the day you leave the military. I mean, it was very exciting, but it was also scary. I remember taking this selfie video saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm a civilian," and I was all excited. And then it just kind of sunk in, because the same day I separated, I moved from Virginia to North Carolina, because I was already accepted into UNC for undergrad. I still really didn't know what I wanted to do as a career, but that very first semester, I found a group of people in like a student club called NISLA, the National Student Speech Language Hearing Association. And I wanted to learn more about becoming a speech pathologist. And the reason being was during that transition assistance program, while I was still in, I guess the only good thing that did for me was they made us take these career aptitude tests. Like, "Oh, are you sure you want to leave the military? I think you still need us. You don't know what you want to do with your life. You need to stay in." So they make you take these career aptitude tests. And I think I ended up taking 2 or 3, and all of them kept telling me to either be a teacher or a nurse. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be either of those things. My mom told me not to be a teacher. She was a teacher. She was like, don't do it, Marissa. It's changing. And I can't be a nurse because I can't do needles. So I actually hopped onto Google. You can, because Google is everyone's best friend now.
I know
and
everything, yeah.
I actually typed in careers related to teaching and nursing. And I came across speech pathology. And that's how I kind of started seeking out things related to speech. And I saw they call it Fall Fest at UNC, where all these student-run clubs get together, and all these flyers are going like, join our club, join our club. Mm-hmm. So that's when I found NISLA.
Wow.
And then through them, they were urging everyone to apply for the undergraduate minor for speech and hearing sciences. And so I did that, and I was able to take all of the courses and minor in speech and hearing sciences for my undergraduate degree. And then those 5 or 6 courses were actually the prerequisites for the UNC graduate program for speech pathology. So I was kind of setting myself up for success without even realizing it at the time. So that's kind of how.
That's what it's about. It's like, yeah.
Say
it's
that
like
again.
About like experiment. It's like I feel like if you don't know where you're going, it's just about like experimenting and just doing your research, and all of your actions will just eventually lead you to your path. So for everyone that doesn't know, because I don't know what a speech pathologist does, what do you focus on? Like, what is like a high level view of what you're responsible for?
So the field of speech pathology is so broad. You could do so much with it. A lot of people associate it with like working with kids in schools, but I actually work with adults in hospitals. So the population often that get suffer from strokes and then changes in their speech and swallowing after those events. That's what I specialize in. So I'm kind of on the medical side of it, a medical speech pathologist, and I absolutely love it. I work in acute care rehab.
So in many ways, you blended being a teacher and being a nurse, avoiding needles, but you are still in a medical setting, and you are teaching people how to speak again and swallow again after whatever happened to them. So how about that?
It was the perfect marriage. I mean, Google, it did wonders for that.
Google, what should I do with my life?
Yes.
That's amazing. You were doing all the work for yourself first to figure out, what do I want? What values? What are the ideas of the skills? Because everybody focuses on skills, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's the work you love to do that's going to make you happy long term. And I think that's really hard for military people to like really grab that concept when we're so used to being assigned your specialty code and receiving that training. Right now, literally, you get to decide. The whole entire world is available to you. And like I said, some of us are like, yes, this is so liberating. And others are like, oh my God, how terrifying. Because
terrifying.
They're one decision, right? And I always say, make your decision and then make it the right decision. Don't, analysis paralysis yourself, just do it, go figure it out. You can tweak it later. I love your story. That's amazing. I wish
that's great.
I didn't know all that, because when we did the workshop at Chapel Hill, we have this schedule. And so you only get to meet with each person so much time. So I really appreciate hearing all of that and how you did it. That's very powerful, very instructive.
Yes. And I mean, what I said, what June read, my quote on the back of your book, I'm so honored to be in it, by the way. Thank you so much.
Of course.
But it's really true. I never realized that I still constantly go back to the Air Force core values: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. And those 3 things constantly pop up on job descriptions for medical speech language pathologists. Wow. They want someone with integrity. They want service before self, of course. They want excellence. And so I've also married those 2 things together really well too. Like, hey, this is what my life was all about and still is, and just bringing that from one career to a completely different career. It's just amazing how much they can actually relate if you really think about it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Before we wrap up, I want everyone, all of you, to briefly say what you're thankful for as far as like your overall experience in the military. And if everyone could just share a tip for anyone that's feeling lost right now, that's transitioning out of the military, what is your one tip that you want to recommend everyone do?
So the first part was what we learned, or like something we're great. Okay, so
What you're grateful for.
grateful
Mhm.
for, and then a tip. Okay, can I go
Well, I want
last?
to have, yeah, you're going to go last. Raul, you go first.
One more time, can you say
What are
that?
you
There's a
grateful
trucking
for
over here.
from your experience in the military? That's one question. And then one tip that you can recommend anyone that's transitioning out of the military that feels lost.
I would recommend that believe in the process, believe in yourself. It's going to be a hard road, but as long as you believe that you're doing the right thing for you, it'll always happen, regardless of what monumental goal it is. Take checkpoints and then work your way to it, and then also speak to Graciela, because or someone that just is great like that, and hopefully you'll get it together and it'll work out for you.
Mhm.
And then what was the other one?
What are you grateful for from your experience in
Oh,
the military?
well, definitely being able to run 3 miles is one of them. Thank God I can still do that. Um, and just being able to have the discipline. I think most just having the discipline to keep going forward, because I think that's the strongest attribute that I have for myself doing anything, basically.
Is like that grit, right? Like your
Yeah,
perseverance, like your
I'll push
attitude.
it through everything. Yeah, kind of
Yep.
thing.
Well, thank you, Raul. Your turn, Marissa.
Okay, well, I think my grateful for is pretty obvious considering the path that I took. I am so grateful for that GI Bill because I now have a master's degree with $0 in student loans. And I don't know. I don't even think I would have a bachelor's degree if it wasn't for that. So the GI Bill is something I'm very grateful for. A tip I have a few, but I'll make them short. First one is self-care. I know that's like the big thing now is take care of yourself. But it's true, especially when you're transitioning out and you have that feeling of being lost and that lack of purpose. And I think another thing that helps with that purpose is trying to find something that makes you feel like you're helping others, because that does wonders for your own mood and your purpose. So if you can't find your own motivation to get up off the couch or sleep till noon, put it in your schedule that at 10 o'clock this morning, I'm going to go help someone do something. And that in turn will help yourself and get yourself motivated to start, taking the steps needed to do whatever it is that you want to do. I also wanted to bring up very quickly something I heard Graciela say earlier is when she was talking about her acronym of brand, the N in brand is noticeable. And that's something really hard to do for veterans when they transition out, because they feel like, I don't have anything in common with anyone, especially if you're a student. You feel like a fish out of water.
Yep.
And I think just that idea of don't hide, become noticeable, find a network, find a support group, something that can help you kind of just get out of that funk that the transition puts you in.
Yeah. Wow.
That's so important. What do you feel before we go to Graciela? What do you think about that, Raul, as far as like having that community? Oh, Raul, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, definitely. Sorry
Marissa
about
said
that.
like as far as like the end part is noticeable. The importance of like finding like that support group where you feel like you can relate. What do you think about that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely can relate. I'm not really a person that likes to be, I guess, noticed. The kind of guy that would sit in most veterans that I know would sit in the back and all kinds of stuff. That's me. So being noticeable is definitely one of the things I was having trouble with.
It's so hard.
And it's very common. And so, yeah, I'm glad you chose that letter, because that's the hardest part. Like, intentionally being known to other people. Yeah.
Hey, Graciela.
Oh man, these are such good questions. Okay, well, I'm gonna say first. I'll say two things. So, for everybody that has kids, okay, I am so grateful that my high school counselor's husband happened to be an Air Force major. A random occurrence. Some say it was meant to be, but I would not have been able to go to college because I knew of no other funding sources that would have paid for 4 years had I not been told about the ROTC program. We didn't have JROTC in high school. So for everybody that has kids, or for everybody that knows somebody with kids, make sure they all know about the military academies and the process to apply there, and the ROTC programs, because those are free education, or scholarship to go to get your education, that so many communities who are heavily recruited to go directly in, they're in your cafeteria in high school, they've never heard of the ROTC program. Okay. And that is really why I speak at schools, why I write children's books, to get that information about that scholarship into more minds. So that's what I'm really grateful for, because honestly, nothing else would have happened were it not for that. So that's my number one gratitude in the military. The second thing that from the military is, and I was on a program earlier this morning, there was a 13-year-old girl talking to like 8 women veterans. And she asked this question, which is going to be my answer. She said, "What did you all learn about yourselves while you were in the military?" That was the question from the 13-year-old girl. And my answer was, I learned that I can literally learn anything about any system, airplane systems, geopolitical stuff, things you learn as officers, things about contingency planning, war planning, like lots of things. I literally learned in the military that I can learn anything. And that confidence to learn anything then extended into my life as a marketer, and then as an entrepreneur, starting a company, making it to the 10-year point, because I can keep on learning. And if I don't know something, I know somebody that can teach me. I can go find it. I can Google, right? And that belief system that I can learn anything comes from my time in the military. It really, really does. And the tip, so many tips, but I think the most important tip, and I'll repeat what I said earlier, is you will be successful when you surround yourself with people who want you to be successful. And we see that in the workshops that we do when we're all there and we're helping each other, and we come up with these brands and these ideas and we kick them around, and we talk it out, and then someone stands up and they reads it and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea you had done that. And it's like amazing, right? But that feeling of that togetherness, it is important. It comes from the military. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? But when you get to the transition, like suddenly, like you don't want to look weird, like you haven't figured it out, or you don't want to look weak, and like realize everybody's going through the same thing. So again, that come right back to what the military taught you. Go with the team, learn the steps, make yourself a checklist, like all the discipline things that we learned in the military. You can apply those plus the marketing mindset to have a successful transition, but it doesn't start by doing it alone. So that would be my most important tips.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm really honored to celebrate Veterans Day with you all. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I put everyone's link in the comments for Marissa's LinkedIn, Raul's, and Graciela, as well as Graciela's website. But someone did ask, when is your next workshop, Graciela, that you are hosting?
What I would do is contact me through LinkedIn, because those scheduled workshops right now are happening through universities, because that's mostly how they happen. But I am going to start scheduling them just on my own and have people come to them that way. But I'm going to do it. Just contact me directly and we'll get one created. But right now the scheduled ones are all done through university clients. So if you happen to be a student veteran, or if you happen to work for a veteran serving organization, contact me and we can set up the virtual workshops straight up, on Zoom, and get you books in advance or afterwards or whatever. But this is really what I'm here to do. This is what I love doing. This is where everything I've done comes together to serve this community that I love so much.
Well, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. Please buy her book. Support veteran-owned businesses, military spouses, anything in the military this month.
go.
Perfect
I'll
gift. Perfect gift for Veterans Day and for the holidays. Thank you so much. I will see you guys soon tomorrow. And thank you. Take
I just
care.
want to
Thank
say
you.
how proud I am of Marissa and Raul, and how grateful I am to you that you have brought your stories now, to more people. That you this is the end of brand right here. You're making yourself much more noticeable to people, and
Yes.
we're grateful to you, and just really, really proud of the strides that you've made for yourself. And I can't wait to see what happens next. And you know that I'm always going to be here for you.
Aw.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye, guys.